Hello, and welcome to the end of the internet as we know it. We stand on the precipice of a new era of censorship and surveillance, all in the name of protecting the children. How did we get here? Let's dig in and stretch it out, shall we?
He was gay, so I'm already confused. And so when look at I'm 28 section, and so like I'm a trans
The fascist right is fighting a culture war that positions parents' rights against racial justice, the LGBTQ community, and gender-affirming care. What a bunch of fucking assholes.
This morning, the Florida law critics dub the Don't Say Gay bill is expanding.
Gender ideology has no place in our K-12 school system.
35% of trans youth in this country now live in a state that has passed a ban on gender-affirming care for minors. That's healthcare that's considered crucial and life-saving by the medical community. These laws are an intentional act of genocide. What happened to the old-fashioned Republicans of W's day committing genocide across the world?
In state houses across the country this year, lawmakers have pushed bills restricting or outright banning gender-affirming care for transgender minors.
If you vote yes on this bill and yes on these amendments, I hope the next time there's an invocation, when you bow your heads in prayer, you see the blood on your hands.
Now, the internet has become the latest battleground in the fight for so-called parental rights, and this time it's a bipartisan issue, with support from Joe Biden, or at least that's what his mumble sounded like. The Kids Online Safety Act, or KOSA, was co-authored by Republican Senator Marsha Blackburn, seen here saying the quiet part out loud.
What do you think is the top issue that conservatives should be taking action on right now?
Of course, protecting minor children from the transgender and this culture and that influence. I've got the Kids Online Safety Act that I think we're going to end up getting through probably this summer. This would put a duty of care and responsibility on the social media platforms, and this is where children are being indoctrinated.
Blackburn also sees anti-racist education as a danger to kids, calling critical race theory an unhinged attempt at brainwashing our nation's children. It's not hard to see how these racist and anti-trans perspectives will be weaponized by KOSA to silence marginalized voices, and that's just what we need. More weapons.
She votes against fair pay for women. She votes against the reauthorization of the Violence Against Women Act, which is just basically protecting us from domestic abuse and stalking. She thinks that if you're a gay couple, or even if you look like a gay couple, you should be allowed to be kicked out of a restaurant. It's really basic human rights, and it's right and wrong at this point.
So what does KOSA actually do? In addition to setting age limits on social media use, the bill tasks social media companies with a so-called duty of care, banning content related to anxiety, depression, eating disorders, substance use disorders, and suicidal behaviors. Thank God there's a famously good mental health care system in this country, and people don't have to turn to TikTok to fix their brains.
While the issues we're talking about here are real, this legislation would actually make them worse. The way this provision is currently written, it would lead to platforms suppressing not just content that's promoting those things, but also content that is helping kids avoid those things.
The mental health of minors is already being used as a false justification for anti-trans laws. Under KOSA, existing as a trans person on social media could lead to your account being banned or shadow banned. The Heritage Foundation, a far-right group that claims big tech turns kids trans, has proudly stated they'll use this law to censor transgender content online. We only have one big machine that turns kids trans, and it's a secret. Shh. President Biden has been calling for online child safety legislation for years, championing the issue in his State of the Union addresses. Now he's practically chomping at the bit to get KOSA passed. Or maybe it's a kidney stone.
Pass it, pass it, pass it, pass it, pass it. I really mean it. Think about it. You ever get a chance to look at what your kids are looking at online?
With all the right is doing to play the protector of children, it seems like Biden is jealous. Maybe he wants to appeal to the 1 in 4 Republicans and 9% of Democrats who believe in QAnon's secret cabal of child-sacrificing pedophile elites. And we all know there are no pedophiles amongst the Republicans. No former president's trying to nail their daughters.
If Ivanka weren't my daughter, perhaps I'd be dating her. You know.
Stop it! Oh, it's so weird. Stop. You know what? You are sick.
Several LGBTQ rights organizations, including GLAAD, were opposed to KOSA in its initial form last year, but have since changed their position to one of strategic neutrality. I guess the gay organizations don't want to be seen as opposed to the protection of children in this new era of groomer rhetoric.
Groomer has become the right new buzzword of choice.
When did our public schools, any schools, become what are essentially grooming centers for gender identity radicals?
KOSA would take power away from parents and hand it to states' attorney generals. It would likely lead to an ID-based age verification system, strengthening the surveillance state. It's the latest terrible internet bill in a long line of them, including FOSTA SESTA, which endangered the lives of sex workers and censored sex online. R.I.P. Craigslist personals.
It's one of the most significant pieces of online censorship legislation in the last 20 years.
What have you actually heard from your clients and how it's changed their lives?
For some people, it was a death sentence. It had resulted in making the entire sex work industry much more dangerous and confining it to its most dangerous business model.
The average age of the Senate is 65. The leadership on both sides of the aisle is alarmingly old. Are these the people who should be untangling complex technical issues about safety, privacy, and censorship? Are these people going to live forever and keep holding us hostage? Asking for all my queer friends.
All right, I'm sorry, you all, we're going to need a minute.
There's still time to stop KOSA and other bills like it from becoming law. Call your old-ass senators. The Electronic Frontier Foundation makes it easy to email your representatives about KOSA. Call out GLAAD, GLSEN, and PFLAG for giving up the fight. Take action today and fight for a free and open internet without censorship. Otherwise...